Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Thursday. It's June 8th. This will be our chart listening for the day, and we're continuing to push higher here. You can see uh, this is the daily chart with envelope bands. I always like to kind of take a look at the bigger picture to see what we're doing. And this thing's still pushing higher. We didn't make a new high today, but we closed at a new high, and this thing is pointed up fairly strongly now. So even though we're approaching overbought territory, we haven't closed over into that upper side yet, so we could still go much higher here. So, I mean, really, if you look at this, there's always the possibility of a measured leg up. That puts prices way on up here. That's up above 4,400, so 4,420 or so maybe. So that's a possibility. Never rule it out. But this thing just keeps chopping higher, so we're not going to argue with it. We're going to go where it takes us. And right now it wants to go higher. So there it is. Let's flip over to the intraday chart, 2000 tick chart, and we'll take a look at the trades and go through each one of those. Okay, here's a look at our 2000 tick chart. As you can see, it looked like we were going same MO daily. It looks like we start off in this range. We did break out and continue to trend today. You can see this trend channel working up. We finally got a two-legged correction with a break, moved to a new high, and then we just kind of chopped around after that. So, but yeah, we continued to push higher today. Yesterday we kind of broke out, and we didn't even make a measured move based on the range. So that would be your first target. Once you push through there, you have to assume that, hey, we probably got a trend going higher here, because this dash line would be the measured move based on the width of the original range here. And we broke through this pretty quickly here, pushed through it multiple times. You always expect this to fail, even if it's only momentarily. It's going to fail. Then you look for some kind of support that proves we're going to go higher before you really try to get on and go long. So you got to be real careful there. And anyway, we broke higher, trended higher. We had what I call a spike up and into a channel, two-tiered channel, and that took us up to really into a new high today. So let's zoom in here. We'll go through the trades. We did have a high volatile news item this morning, a red one, unemployment claims. So I blocked out that window from about 7:15 to a little after 7:30, and pretty much by, I mean, we had a little bit of I mean, I don't even know if you'd call those larger bars. I'd say it really didn't have much effect. But we clearly got a triple test here. This would have been a triple test, but we never broke lower. We just got another inside bar, and then this one formed, and then this one formed, and this one broke higher and turned down. If we break below that, we're probably going to go lower, because, I mean, look how many times we tried to, and you got at least a triple test in there. And that's a very huge reversal bar. So shows you this resistance is very strong up here. So, I mean, this is close to being red. The only reason I left it green is because it didn't close through the EMA. There is a little bit of support there, so it could bounce. Actually, it does go lower and turn back up and fail and turn down. You might look at this as some of you might say, why is this not a failure? Really, you got a double top here, and so the count starts over. So that's just like a first entry. And then your second entry comes down here. I don't see anything I like there to be. I mean, that's obviously congestion. So I like this one for a possibility. If you took that trade, it's not a perfect setup, but it's good enough if you understand what's going on there. And of course, we bounce here, and I mean, there's not much happening. It's very weak. I know that's really tempting for another turn down, but again, it's such a big bar, and it's right into the EMA. I think that would have worked if you took it, but it's just too much bar for not enough room to get out there back to these lows. As you can see, I mean, it's 5 or 6 ticks. That's really pushing it, and you can see it would have worked. I wouldn't take that trade. There's 6 ticks there, which is just enough You do get a lower high here, but then you have even less room. Again, I'm pretty sure it works, but I wouldn't take those trades. You can see there's an extra tick on that one. You got 7 ticks, but it comes back and tests it again. It gives you a little more room this time, um, and it gives you a fairly nice signal bar without being quite as big as this one. And now you could argue this is all one touch and another triple test. There's clear resistance right there. This one actually broke higher and then turned down. It didn't give you an engulfing bar, but I like going short on that one. And then notice what happens here. It tries to go higher once, twice, and by the time it makes that second one, it confirms that trend line right there and gives you a second entry short. Notice that new low, first entry, second entry. If you just want to trade that as a second entry, the signal bar is questionable. It doesn't quite close on its one lower third, I don't think. But if you see the failure and the second entry, you take that trade. Turns out to be a really nice move down. And then I know at least one person got fooled on this because they sent me their chart. Looking at it, maybe their chart was different than mine. They took a second entry right here, which this would have been the second entry, and so that would have had to been your signal bar. Then maybe this one could be your signal bar, but it never breaks lower till here, and that's an inside bar. So there's really no entry there, but I know somebody sent me their chart, and this was a failure. But this is not a leg up. This is sideways stuff. So this is your first leg up, and then some sideways, and then the second leg up. So if you count it that way, it's still, notice you got a first entry. By the counts, it's a second entry and third entry. We had one on this chart just like this yesterday, and somebody questioned me. I originally called this a second entry, and then I corrected myself. But I went back and listened, and I never said it's a third entry. I just said this is a second entry, and I said, no, never mind, this isn't a second entry. It's just 2 legs back. And the whole idea of, let me explain this. Anytime you see a second entry, the whole idea is it's supposed to be multiple. The market tends to move in twos. So generally, you want to see 2 legs. So if you see a bunch of sideways stuff, so even though you get a count there, that doesn't look like a leg of any kind. So really, this looks like a double bottom, and I'd count my count over, and there's 1 leg, then there's a correction, and then there's another leg here. So that's how I would look at that. So technically, this is 2 legs back with a big bearish bar, and that's exactly what that trade looked like yesterday, almost identical. And so if it breaks below this bar, it's probably going lower. You got plenty of room to get out here. I like that trade. I marked it green because it's a little bit more, it's different. It's not a clear-cut second entry, but it's still 2 legs back to the trend line EMA. You do get a break, but I still think it's good enough. I like going short there. I like that trade. I marked it green for that reason, but if you understand what's going on, you can trade that like a 2-legged correction or a second entry short in a downtrend. And then, of course, we bounce off the lows down here at the bottom, work our way higher, and then we find resistance right there at the midline. You don't want to be going short there, but at the same time, you can't go long into that. And it finally runs up, and then no short up here, and then we're just chopping sideways. Don't try to enter in this stuff or this either. I had somebody trying to count second entries in something similar to that today. They sent me their video, and I replied back to them. But yeah, as we talked about, you don't count second entries in that kind of stuff. You just get chopped to pieces. But we run back up, we make another high, and we do make a lower high here. Unfortunately, the signal bar is no good. Same thing here. Now this one maybe, the only problem I got with this one is it makes a new high. You could count that as a first entry, second entry, and it does make it, but it makes a new high. It's higher than that one. And it's higher than that one. So we're making higher highs and higher lows here, and that's a concern. So you got to be careful going short there. It's probably going to act like a failed breakout, and if you took it, it works. But notice how it gaps right there. It closes on its low, opens. You'd have to be super quick to catch that, and you probably can't catch that trade anyway. If you did, it works. But I didn't mark it. I like waiting on a lower high, and we just didn't get one. And of course, it bounces again. It's tempting to go long there, but there's enough room to get out here. And maybe this is moved a little bit higher. You might even could move this up. I'd leave it where it is for now. And you might look at this. This looks like all one touch though, so I don't really see the triple test until over here. But notice what happens. We run up, we make another new high, but now we make an equal high, which is the same thing as a lower high, a double top. And it actually breaks higher and fails and turns down. You might trade that on the engulfing. I think I'd wait for this to close. Closes bearish. Now you can go short. That's what you want to see on a breakout. You want to see if you're making new highs like that. Now, if it's consistent all the way across, kind of like we were early on, and you get a touch off of it, then maybe you take it. But when it's making a new high each time, wait on that lower high. And sometimes you don't get one, but it's still better off to wait. And notice what happens. You get two legs down here, and you get a second entry long right off that key entry point. You got a little trend line working up here, and you get a second entry long. I like taking that because it's a one. This is all one test basically. 2, 3. There's a triple test right there, and this actually opened and went lower and reversed and closed on its high. Shows some strength. But it even gives you a higher low and it bounces off the support resistance. I really like going long there now. This one you're just trying to get a scalp here. Hey, maybe we're going higher, which we do. Runs on up, just sideways. Get a break, runs to a new high, and again, just sideways. I don't see anything here I like. It's just too tight. This one's tempting, but it makes another new high, so try to wait on a lower high, and then you don't have any room. Another new high. Again, you get a lower high here, but you don't have room. I think it would have worked if you traded it on the engulfing, but don't risk that because it could bounce right off that line just like it did here. And you just don't really get a chance to trade this. It's just too sideways, too choppy, until finally you get what I'd call a triple test here. 1, 2, 3, and there's a little hidden second entry in there. Nice bearish bar. I'm pretty sure that makes a double top. It's close enough that I'd call that a double top. But if it makes a new high again, you're probably better off waiting on a lower high. And so you might call that a lower high, but that moved too far because it went all the way through both sides and down to the other side. So I don't think I would call this a lower high. This is just another new high. It is lower than this high, but when we talk about a tradable lower high, that doesn't mean it's just a lower high. It means it's the next lower high after the high we just made here. People get confused on that, and they think, well, any lower high you can trade. Well, if that's the case, you could take every first entry, same thing going up. You take every first entry just because it's a high or low. But the only trade we take on a lower high is the immediate lower high or high or low right after the touch of the key entry point, which would have been considered this high. And so, yeah, there's another lower high here, but the only one we'd be interested in trading is this one if it sets up good. But like I said, I don't really consider that a lower high, this tradable, because we moved too far. So, hope that's clear. There is a failure right here that makes this real tempting, but there's a lot of resistance across there, and you got this high right here too. So it ends up working, but we run all the way up to the other side of the channel and then turn down. At this point, I'm still leery about going short. Notice you get a break, close outside, move to a new high, and you actually make a lower high here, but that's too congested. But then suddenly you get a failure, the second entry long. You actually have 3 bars here, so you could, this one's close to wanting to count this as a new high too. but I think you can count this as a first entry, second entry, and it's also a breakout pullback uh, short. So if it breaks below there, it's probably going to trap people and head to the trend line. That's where I think we're headed. And so there's plenty of room there. Maybe you take that trade. I marked it green. It's a little convoluted, but it's there. And there's actually a new channel here. I didn't put it on here. You could look at this as a retest too, but this looks like two measured legs to me. You can see we actually went a little further than a measured leg. But you're running down, you get a maybe you get a close outside here. If you do, it doesn't really confirm that trend line, but that looks valid there. So this looks like a break, and maybe what it is, this really is just the retest of this low, and then once we got a new low, it reverses. So it doesn't matter really how you saw it, as long as you understand what's going on. We made a new low. We made two measured legs. We're probably going to, we may go high, we may retest the high now, which we do. And I just don't see anything going long here. There is a new low here, so first entry and then second entry. So you might say, hey, this is a failure, but it doesn't set up very good to take a failure. It's not really where you want to look for a failure. So just, you really can't trade that. It runs up, and then we just start working sideways. And I think you could easily argue that's a triple test on a failed breakout, but you almost need a lower high, and that comes here. And again, it's moved a little far for a lower high, but I marked it green as well. Maybe you take it. But you got a triple test. You actually got more than a triple test down here on the low with a green bar, and we're in an uptrend, even though we've had a break in and we haven't had a new high yet, so we're still looking for that. So if it breaks above that, we're probably running back up to the high side again. As long as you got room there, take that trade. Be careful with these other two because they're counter trend, and I explain why I didn't like them, and it's getting late in the day, so you want to take mostly the better trades. So pretty good, decent morning. There's a few trades here. It was kind of quiet this afternoon with a lot of movement, but just not a lot of really good setups. So we can't seem to get, yesterday was a little better, but for the most part, we can't seem to get a good trend that it's just real clear second entries and stuff off the key entry point. There was one thing, I'm going to pause this 1 second. If I can find it, I'm going to talk about one trade, then we're going to wrap it up. Okay, again, this was yesterday's chart, and it looks something like this, and I didn't completely draw everything on here. A lot of these I drew the trend up with the break, and then there were some questions about this second entry. This is a clear 2 legs back to the key entry point with a super bearish bar. And it also made a little bit of a break higher and turn down, an engulfing bar. Probably trapped some people. You can see how strong it is. And look how strong and quick that follow through is. That's our bread and butter trade. I mean, that's, but somebody asked about it, why I took that. Well, it's because it's a second entry, and I think the point they were making was, or at least somebody else made the point, hey, he didn't even draw his trend channel up on it. It probably would have looked like that, so you still get somewhat of a close outside, and it's clearly 2 legs up. This is 1 leg, a break, and a move to a new high. And even if you drew it just like this, in this case, fairly strong trend down, the confirmation of a trend line, and 2 legs back to it with that bearish of a bar, you just, there's no reason to say, hey, we're about to reverse here. We're still making lower highs and lower lows and trending lower. I mean, you got to take that trade. That is our bread and butter trade. And here's another one right here, second entry. And there's another thing too. You would have drawn this channel right here. Well, that's the first break of that channel, so you're looking for a retest of that low, like right there. And then you get another two-legged correction. And this one's clearly it's going to be probably very close to like that other one. You get is it a convincing close? Well, it's a micro trend, so it's hard to say. And yeah, you probably could argue, all right, let's pull it down a little more. Still fits pretty good. Um, and you can see it does pull back like it's trying to test that trend line, then it goes lower again. So it's still another second entry. And I mean, when you get a good downtrend, so this one would be, I'd like this one better than this one because it's at the key entry point. I mean, you're proving you confirmed your key entry point no less right there. And it's clearly too easy to spot legs back. That's our bread and butter trade. You can't be afraid to pull the trigger. Now, when you get down here to this one, maybe you skip this one because now you're starting to get some support across there. And it looks like we're starting to go sideways. Now maybe I'd be concerned on, even though that's another clear second entry, two clear legs, maybe you'd be more concerned about that one. But not this one off the key entry point. And I pretty much even like that one. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about that because it came up a couple of people questioning that, and I got at least one email on it. So yeah, you can't be afraid to. I mean, two legs back, and that's another thing. Just make sure it looks like two legs. Sometimes it doesn't look like two legs. And then that's when you might be a little bit concerned. So, like here's a leg back, first entry, and that doesn't necessarily look like another leg back, but it's a second entry short. Signal bar is not very good, but I mean, doesn't mean you still can't take it because even here, if you draw your trend channel, you do get a break in new high, so you still got a reason you might take that trade, other than you're on the other side of the midline and EMA too. So maybe you made on the lower high and then go short, but you have to look at the whole picture. And you have to see, you have to consider what you're seeing. Does it look like two legs back? Does it look like one leg back and maybe some sideways stuff? Or the whole premise behind second entries is the market moves in twos. And so we're looking for two legs down and then a correction. And then two legs up and then a correction. And two legs up and more down. And a lot of times you're getting your two legs down as well. So the more you do this, the easier these little legs and pieces of legs and, the smaller legs within the bigger legs and, I mean, all of that stuff. So it gets easier to see. If you're new to this, it's just like trying to speak any foreign language. It's like gibberish to you. It just looks like bars printed to a chart with no meaning or anything. But once you start to understand it and can see it, it'll look totally different. Just like words will sound totally different if you're speaking a language and you understand it versus speaking a language you've never heard before. It just sounds like gibberish. But to somebody that understands it, it's clear as a bell. And reading a chart is exactly the same. You got to get to where it's clear as a bell. And it won't always, it'll always be like somebody speaking a language that's a non-native speaker and they're speaking in that language broken. So that's the way I would describe how chart language is. It's like a non-native person speaking it in their broken, let's say this was Russian, just probably because there's not very many Russian listeners out there. I'm sure there's some of you that can speak Russian, but most of you would get that. I don't speak Russian. So this chart's speaking Russian, but it's somebody that's Spanish speaking it, and their Russian's not very good. They're speaking broken Russian. That's what this chart is like. And so you got to learn, and so you can get good at interpreting the broken language as well. Just like if I've got a good friend that I know, he's Hispanic, and he doesn't speak really good English. He speaks in broken English with his Hispanic accent. And I can understand every word he says now because I've been listening to him for years. But you go somewhere where somebody's not like used to listening to him, they can't understand half of what he says because he's speaking in broken English, not very good, clear English. His English is getting better, but he still doesn't speak the best English. But 90% of the time, I know every word he's saying. And so as you get better with this chart, you'll be the same way. You'll better interpret the broken chart language that is being spoken here. So I hope that's clear. That's the best way I can think of to describe reading a chart. But I hope that was helpful to you coming back and talking about that trade too. But I'm going to wrap it up. It's still up in there if I'm going to do a chart lesson tomorrow. You'll get a surprise if I do it, I guess. And if I don't, then I got out of here too early. So I'm going to try to do one, but no promises. So this depends on how my day is going tomorrow. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Again, reminder, no chart lesson on Monday or Tuesday, and I'll be back in the office Wednesday. And also no mid-morning charts. I'll be completely out Monday and Tuesday on my fishing trip. I leave Sunday afternoon, and I'll be back Tuesday night. So I'll be back in the office Wednesday, assuming we don't have any travel problems or run into any issues or anything. So hope everybody has a great weekend. If I don't talk to you tomorrow, good luck on Monday and Tuesday. Hope the market, maybe it'll give us something good on those 2 days. It usually does when I'm gone. We'll get some of our best days. I'll probably miss them. But anyway, I'll see you Wednesday. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.